Stop scrolling and listen to today's Arcturian Council message. Starseed, the Lemurian code of silent prosperity, why your abundance grows when you say nothing, when your stillness becomes louder than any manifestation technique. Here is the shock you were never warned about: the harder you try to manifest abundance, the further it often runs from you. This message may unsettle you, even anger you, because it dismantles years of spiritual conditioning that told you to affirm louder, visualize harder, speak endlessly about your dreams, and prove your worth to the universe. The Arcturian Council reveals that true prosperity does not respond to noise, it responds to resonance. The Lemurian code was never activated through force, effort, or explanation. It was encoded into silence, into the calm knowing that does not beg to be seen. When you constantly announce your plans, fears, or intentions, you leak energy. Silence, however, compresses power. This is why some of the most prosperous beings you will ever encounter rarely explain themselves. They don't need to. Their field speaks for them. If this message feels like it's exposing something uncomfortable, that's because it's touching dormant truth inside you. Backhand index pointing right to claim this activation. Type, "I receive the truth," in the comments. The Lemurians understood something modern humanity has forgotten: abundance is a response, not a reward. It does not arrive because you deserve it or because you ask the universe politely enough times. It arrives because your inner frequency became undeniable. In Lemuria, prosperity was never discussed openly, it was cultivated inwardly. Speaking too soon was considered a form of energetic sabotage. When you talk about what you are building before it stabilizes, you expose it to distortion, doubt, and external influence. The Arcturian Council emphasizes that silence is not passivity, it is gestation. Just as a seed grows in darkness before breaking the soil, your abundance requires a private phase. If you felt called to pull back, stop explaining, and move quietly lately, this is confirmation, not isolation. You are not being hidden, you are being fortified. Backhand index pointing right to anchor this code. Type, "I honor the silence," to claim the message. Here is another truth that may shock you: not everyone deserves access to your vision. Lemurian wisdom taught that words are portals, and once spoken, energy travels. When you share prematurely, you invite opinions that do not align with your frequency. The Arcturian Council warns that many starseeds unknowingly collapse timelines by over-communicating their next step. Silence protects momentum. Silence allows the universe to rearrange itself without interference. This is why your biggest breakthroughs often happen when you stop seeking validation. When you stop asking, "Do you think this will work?" and start trusting the internal signal instead. Prosperity grows fastest when it is unobserved. If you've noticed that things begin to fall apart right after you talk about them, this is not coincidence, it is instruction. Backhand index pointing right to seal this realization. Type, "My energy is protected," below. The Arcturian Council explains that modern manifestation culture has confused expression with power. Repeating affirmations without embodiment is like knocking on a door you are not ready to walk through. Lemurian prosperity was activated through internal alignment, not verbal repetition. Silence allowed emotions to settle, intentions to crystallize, and certainty to form. When you become certain, words become optional. This is why silent confidence is magnetic. People feel it without explanation. Opportunities respond without persuasion. If you feel exhausted from constantly explaining your path, your worth, or your dreams, that exhaustion is your soul asking you to return to stillness. Silence is not giving up, it is recalibrating. Backhand index pointing right to integrate this frequency. Type, I choose alignment, to claim it. There is a reason sacred initiations across ancient civilizations were conducted in silence. The Lemurian code of prosperity was never spoken aloud, it was transmitted through presence. The Arcturian Council reveals that silence sharpens intuition and amplifies discernment. When you stop talking, you start hearing the subtle instructions that abundance follows. Many starseeds feel anxiety in silence because they were trained to equate noise with progress. But silence dissolves false urgency. It reveals what truly matters. If your life has been pushing you into quiet moments lately, less socializing, fewer explanations, more observation, this is not withdrawal. This is activation. Backhand index pointing right to accept this initiation. Type, I trust the quiet, now. Another uncomfortable truth, talking about your goals often satisfies the brain enough to delay action. The Arcturian Council calls this verbal completion. When you speak your dreams repeatedly, your nervous system receives a false sense of accomplishment. Lemurians avoided this trap by keeping intentions internal until movement was inevitable. Silence preserved hunger. Silence preserved focus. If you've noticed that your biggest achievements came from phases where you told almost no one what you were doing, that is the Lemurian code at work. Prosperity thrives when attention is inward and energy is conserved. Backhand index pointing right to reclaim this discipline. Type, my focus is sacred, below. Silence also disrupts external control. When people cannot predict you, they cannot manipulate your direction. The Arcturian Council highlights that many systems rely on your disclosure to redirect you. Lemurians practiced energetic sovereignty by revealing only what was necessary, when it was necessary. This allowed abundance to flow without resistance. If you've recently felt the urge to stop oversharing, stop defending yourself, and stop explaining your choices, this is your higher intelligence coming online. Silence is not secrecy, it is sovereignty. Backhand index pointing right to activate sovereignty. Type, I move in my power, to claim. Prosperity is not loud. It does not announce itself before arriving. The Arcturian Council reminds you that the most potent frequencies are often the quietest. Lemurian abundance was stable because it was not reactive. Silence allowed emotional neutrality, which prevented impulsive decisions. If you've been guided to pause before responding, to observe rather than react, you are being trained to hold greater wealth, energetic and material. Wealth requires nervous system stability, and silence is one of its greatest regulators. Backhand index pointing right to stabilize this frequency. Type, I am ready to hold more, below. Here is the paradox. When you stop chasing abundance, it starts chasing you. Silence removes desperation from your field. The Arcturian Council states that desperation repels, while calm certainty attracts. Lemurians knew that abundance recognizes familiarity. When you feel complete internally, external resources rush to mirror that state. Silence helps you feel complete before evidence appears. If this message is stirring something deep, it's because you are remembering an ancient way of being prosperous without struggle. Backhand index pointing right to embody this remembrance. Type, abundance recognizes me now. This is only the beginning of the Lemurian code activation. As you move forward, remember, you do not need to announce your evolution. You do not need permission to grow quietly. The Arcturian Council confirms that your silence is not empty, it is charged. Every moment you choose stillness over explanation, you reclaim power that was leaking away. Let your results speak. Let your energy answer questions before they are asked. Prosperity is already responding. Backhand index pointing right to lock in this transmission. Type, I walk the silent path, to claim the message. What the Arcturian Council reveals next may feel deeply unsettling. Much of what you call motivation is actually fear in disguise. Fear of being unseen. Fear of being left behind. Fear that if you stop speaking, posting, proving, you will disappear. Lemurian wisdom dismantles this illusion completely. In Lemuria, silence was not absence, it was authority. The one who spoke least was often the one with the deepest access to resources, guidance, and influence. Silence reorganizes your internal hierarchy. It removes the need to convince anyone of anything. When you stop narrating your life begins to respond with precision. Opportunities sharpen. Synchronicities increase. This happens because your energy is no longer fragmented across explanations. If you have felt exhausted by constantly needing to be on, this is not laziness, it is your soul demanding a return to energetic efficiency. Silence is efficiency. Silence is mastery. Backhand index pointing right to reclaim this mastery. Type, my presence is enough, to claim the message. The Lemurian code also teaches that abundance is allergic to performance. When prosperity senses that you are trying to appear abundant rather than embody it, it delays. The Arcturian Council explains that performance creates energetic debt, you expend force without return. Silence, however, creates surplus. In silence, your nervous system recalibrates from survival to stability. From stability comes trust, and from trust comes flow. This is why some people rise rapidly without explanation while others struggle loudly with little result. It is not about worth, it is about containment. Silence contains power. If you've been intuitively withdrawing from unnecessary conversations, arguments, or justifications, your field is learning to hold more without leakage. Backhand index pointing right to anchor containment. Type, I hold my energy, below. There is another layer few are willing to confront. Talking too much keeps you anchored in your current identity. The Arcturian Council states that language stabilizes reality. When you repeatedly describe who you are, what you're doing, and where you're going, you reinforce the present timeline. Lemurians used silence during transitions so identity could dissolve and reform without resistance. This is why your upgrades often happen in quiet phases that feel confusing or unproductive. You are not stuck, you are shedding a skin. Silence allows this shedding without interference. If you try to explain yourself mid-transformation, you often revert to what is familiar. Let silence carry you forward. Backhand index pointing right to allow this transformation. Type, I release the old self, now. The Council also warns, oversharing attracts misaligned energy. Not all attention is supportive. In Lemurian society, energetic hygiene was sacred. Silence was used to filter who had access to one's field. Prosperity requires discernment, not openness to everything. If you've experienced sudden doubt, confusion, or loss of momentum after sharing good news, plans, or visions, that was not bad luck, it was energetic contamination. Silence is not fear-based protection, it is intelligent filtration. As you grow, fewer people need updates. Your life does not require commentary to be valid. Backhand index pointing right to strengthen your boundaries. Type, "My field is sovereign," to claim it. Now hear this clearly, because this is where everything flips. The universe listens more when you stop talking. This is the shocking midpoint revelation most never reach. The Arcturian Council confirms that silence amplifies your signal beyond words. When you stop broadcasting mixed messages through complaints, explanations, and emotional noise, your true intention becomes unmistakable. The universe responds to clarity, not chatter. Lemurians knew that silence was a way of issuing commands without resistance. If this realization hits you deeply, it's because you're ready to stop negotiating with reality and start directing it. Backhand index pointing right to activate this authority. Type, "The universe hears me," below. Silence also dismantles urgency, and urgency is the enemy of abundance. The Council explains that urgency collapses timelines into scarcity loops. Lemurian prosperity was built slowly, intentionally, and without panic. Silence calms the body, and a calm body can receive more. If you've been feeling rushed, pressured, or anxious about timing, your system is asking for quiet. Silence tells the universe, "I trust the process," and trust accelerates outcomes. Abundance does not arrive to those who chase, it arrives to those who make space. Backhand index pointing right to restore trust. Type, "I release urgency," to claim this message. Another hidden truth: silence reveals who you really are without an audience. The Arcturian Council says abundance follows authenticity, not image. When no one is watching, who are you? What do you feel? What do you believe? Lemurians used silence to strip away false layers and return to essence. From essence, everything flowed naturally. If silence makes you uncomfortable, it is not your enemy, it is showing you where healing will unlock prosperity. Stay there. Do not escape it with noise. Backhand index pointing right to embrace authenticity. Type, "I meet myself fully, now." Silence also sharpens timing. When you speak less, you sense more. The Council explains that intuition speaks softly, noise drowns it out. Lemurian leaders often waited in silence before major decisions, allowing subtle cues to surface. Prosperity depends on right timing more than hard work. If you've ever acted too soon and regretted it, this is why. Silence trains patience, and patience multiplies results. Backhand index pointing right to align with timing. Type, "I move when guided," below. As your silence deepens, something unexpected happens. People project onto you. This is not a problem, it is a sign of power. The Arcturian Council notes that silence creates a mirror effect. Those aligned will feel drawn, those misaligned will feel unsettled. Lemurians understood this and used silence as a sorting mechanism. Let reactions happen. Do not correct them. Your prosperity does not require being understood. Backhand index pointing right to remain grounded. Type, I let others react, to claim it. You are now approaching the threshold of the Lemurian code. Silence is no longer something you do, it becomes something you are. The Arcturian Council affirms that your quiet confidence is already restructuring your reality. You don't need to announce the shift. You don't need witnesses. Your life will speak in outcomes. Stay with this frequency. Much more is unfolding. Backhand index pointing right to commit to this path. Type, I embody silent prosperity, to seal the transmission. At this stage of the transmission, the Arcturian Council invites you to confront a subtle but powerful realization. Silence does not only change what you attract, it changes how reality organizes itself around you. When you reduce unnecessary speech, mental commentary, and emotional narration, your field becomes coherent. Coherence is the language the universe responds to fastest. Lemurians understood that coherence created inevitability. Things did not work out for them by chance. Outcomes aligned because their inner and outer worlds were no longer in conflict. Silence removed contradiction. If you say you desire abundance but constantly speak doubt, urgency, or comparison, the signal fractures. Silence heals this fracture. As your words decrease, your alignment strengthens. You may notice fewer distractions, clearer decisions, and an unusual sense of inevitability forming around your goals. This is not luck. This is coherence locking in. Backhand index pointing right to stabilize this coherence. Type, my energy is unified, to claim the message. The Council now reveals a deeper layer of the Lemurian code that few access. Silence reclaims time. When you stop explaining yourself, defending your choices, or replaying conversations in your mind, you retrieve enormous amounts of life force. Lemurians believed wasted words created time leaks. Silence sealed them. This is why prosperity accelerated in their civilization without burnout. Modern humans underestimate how much energy is lost through mental noise. Silence collapses unnecessary timelines and pulls your future closer. If you felt like time is speeding up or that manifestations are arriving faster than expected during quieter phases, this is why. Silence bends time in your favor. Backhand index pointing right to reclaim your time energy. Type, I retrieve my power, below. Here is another truth that may feel confronting. Silence exposes intention. When you stop talking, you can no longer hide behind stories. The Arcturian Council explains that silence removes self-deception. It forces clarity. Lemurians welcomed this because clarity was more valuable than comfort. In silence, you quickly discover whether your desires are genuine or inherited, whether your goals are aligned or performative. Prosperity only supports what is authentic. If some desires dissolve as you grow quieter, do not resist it. What remains will be stronger, purer, and far more supported. Backhand index pointing right to welcome clarity. Type, I choose what is real, to claim it. Silence also rewires your relationship with control. The Council states that excessive speech is often an attempt to control outcomes, perceptions, or responses. Lemurian abundance flowed because control was replaced with certainty. Silence says, I know who I am, and I trust what is unfolding. This certainty is deeply attractive to opportunities, allies, and resources. If you've been learning to let conversations end without winning them, to allow misunderstandings without correction, this is not weakness, it is advancement. Prosperity follows those who do not need to force alignment. Backhand index pointing right to embody certainty. Type, I trust my knowing, below. As this segment closes, understand this: silence is now part of your identity. The Arcturian Council affirms that once the Lemurian code activates, you cannot return to unconscious noise. You will feel the difference immediately when you over-explain, overshare, or speak from insecurity. Let that awareness guide you back to stillness. Your abundance is already responding. It is reorganizing, recalibrating, and approaching with precision. Stay quiet. Stay aligned. Let the results announce themselves. Backhand index pointing right to seal this phase of the activation. Type, I live the Lemurian code, to claim the message. The Arcturian Council now draws your awareness to a powerful shift that occurs once silence becomes embodied rather than practiced. Your intuition moves from whisper to command. In earlier phases of awakening, intuition feels subtle, easily overridden by logic, fear, or external opinions. But when you consistently choose silence over explanation, something sharpens. Your inner voice becomes decisive. Lemurians trusted this voice completely, which is why their actions appeared effortless yet perfectly timed. Silence removes interference. You no longer second-guess signals because there is less internal debate. Prosperity responds quickly to decisiveness rooted in calm, not impulse. If you've noticed that your gut feelings are becoming clearer and harder to ignore, this is a sign the Lemurian code is stabilizing. Your wealth, material, energetic, and relational, depends on this clarity. Backhand index pointing right to honor your intuition. Type, I trust my inner command, to claim the message. Another rarely spoken truth emerges here: silence dismantles comparison. The Arcturian Council explains that comparison feeds on exposure. When you constantly observe others' paths, successes, or timelines, your frequency destabilizes. Lemurians limited exposure intentionally, not from fear, but from wisdom. Silence creates a self-referenced reality. You begin measuring progress by alignment rather than appearance. This is crucial for abundance, because comparison introduces scarcity into an otherwise fertile field. If you felt naturally drawn to step back from social noise, updates, or constant observation of others, your system is protecting your momentum. Prosperity accelerates when you stop watching and start embodying. Backhand index pointing right to release comparison. Type, my path is sufficient, below. Silence also recalibrates your relationship with desire. The Council notes that when people talk excessively about what they want, desire becomes inflated and distorted. Lemurians allowed desire to mature quietly until it transformed into knowing. Knowing is stable, wanting is restless. Prosperity responds to knowing. In silence, desire sheds desperation and becomes grounded intention. You stop chasing outcomes and start expecting alignment. If you felt less emotionally reactive about goals that once consumed you, this is not loss of passion, it is refinement. Your desires are becoming clean, powerful, and inevitable. Backhand index pointing right to refine intention. Type, "I know what is mine," to claim it. Here is a subtle but profound shift silence creates. It restores dignity. The Arcturian Council emphasizes that abundance flows toward those who respect their own energy. Over-explaining, justifying, or seeking reassurance erodes dignity. Lemurians considered dignity a form of wealth. Silence preserves it. When you speak less, you naturally command more respect, not through dominance, but through coherence. Others sense that you are not seeking approval. This shifts negotiations, opportunities, and dynamics in your favor. If people are responding to you differently lately, listening more, questioning less, this is the silent authority activating. Backhand index pointing right to reclaim dignity. Type, "I stand unshaken," below. As you move deeper into the Lemurian code, understand this final truth for now: silence is not the absence of creation, it is the womb of creation. The Arcturian Council affirms that everything enduring is formed in quiet first. Noise is surface level. Silence is structural. Your abundance is no longer something you chase or announce. It is something you are preparing to receive fully. Stay with the stillness. Let it mature you. What arrives next will not need explanation. Backhand index pointing right to complete this phase. Type, "I am ready to receive," to claim the message. The Arcturian Council now reveals a transition many starseeds misunderstand, the phase where silence feels heavy before it feels powerful. This is the recalibration zone. When you stop filling space with words, distractions, and constant interaction, unresolved emotions surface. Lemurians did not fear this phase, they welcomed it. They understood that unprocessed emotion blocks abundance far more than lack of effort ever could. Silence brings buried scarcity patterns into awareness so they can dissolve. You may notice memories resurfacing, old fears whispering, or moments of discomfort arising without explanation. Do not interpret this as regression. This is purification. Prosperity cannot coexist with suppressed fear. Silence clears the channel. Stay present. Stay grounded. What passes through now will not follow you forward. Backhand index pointing right to move through purification. Type, "I allow what rises," to claim the message. Another revelation emerges here. Silence trains emotional neutrality, and emotional neutrality multiplies wealth. The Arcturian Council explains that emotional extremes, whether excitement or despair, create instability in manifestation fields. Lemurians cultivated calm satisfaction rather than constant highs. Silence helped regulate emotion, preventing impulsive decisions and reactive spending of energy. As you grow quieter, you may notice fewer dramatic reactions to wins or losses. This does not mean you care less, it means you are stabilizing. Stability attracts long-term prosperity. Volatility attracts cycles. If your emotional responses feel more even lately, this is a sign your system is preparing to hold something lasting. Backhand index pointing right to anchor neutrality. Type, "I remain centered," below. Silence also restructures your relationship with failure. The Council states that failure loses power when it is not narrated. Lemurians did not dramatize missteps, they adjusted quietly. When you stop talking about what didn't work, you stop reinforcing it. Silence allows lessons to integrate without identity attachment. Prosperity grows when mistakes become data, not stories. If you felt less compelled to explain setbacks or justify delays, this is wisdom emerging. You are no longer building a narrative, you are building results. Backhand index pointing right to release old stories. Type, I move forward clean, to claim it. There is also a social shift that occurs at this stage. The Arcturian Council notes that as your silence deepens, some relationships naturally fade. Lemurians accepted this without resentment. Silence changes frequency, and not all connections can adjust. This clearing is not loss, it is capacity creation. Prosperity requires space. If certain conversations feel draining or unnecessary now, trust the pull toward simplicity. The relationships aligned with your next level will meet you in quiet understanding, not constant exchange. Backhand index pointing right to allow realignment. Type, I make space, below. As this segment completes, understand this: your silence is no longer reactive, it is intentional. The Arcturian Council affirms that you are now choosing when to speak from clarity, not compulsion. This is mastery. Every word you do speak carries weight. Every decision lands cleanly. Prosperity responds to this precision. Continue honoring the quiet. It is shaping a future that will speak for itself. Backhand index pointing right to seal this level. Type, my silence is deliberate, to claim the message. The Arcturian Council now brings forward a realization that redefines leadership itself. True authority does not persuade, it stabilizes. Lemurian leaders were not loud visionaries rallying others through charisma, they were energetic anchors. Their silence regulated entire communities. When you embody silence, your nervous system becomes a stabilizing force for others. People feel calmer around you without knowing why. Conversations slow. Decisions become clearer. Prosperity follows this stabilizing frequency because chaos cannot persist in its presence. If you've noticed others seeking your opinion more carefully, or pausing when you enter a space, this is not coincidence. Your silence is carrying signal. Backhand index pointing right to embody stabilizing leadership. Type, I anchor clarity, to claim the message. Silence also restores integrity between your inner and outer worlds. The Council explains that many abundance blocks come from internal contradiction, wanting one thing while speaking another, feeling one way while presenting differently. Lemurians used silence to realign these layers. When you speak less, you have less opportunity to betray your truth unconsciously. Integrity strengthens. Prosperity requires integrity because resources flow toward consistency. If you've been simplifying your language, choosing words more carefully, or opting not to speak when something feels misaligned, this is your system correcting itself. Backhand index pointing right to strengthen integrity. Type, I speak only truth, below. At this depth, silence begins to change how you perceive success. The Arcturian Council reveals that Lemurians did not chase milestones, they tracked harmony. Silence makes harmony perceptible. You begin to sense when something is off long before it fails. This foresight protects abundance. Instead of learning through loss, you learn through awareness. If you've started disengaging from opportunities that look good on the surface but feel heavy underneath, your discernment is sharpening. Prosperity favors those who know when to walk away quietly. Backhand index pointing right to honor discernment. Type, I choose what aligns, to claim it. Another shift unfolds here. Silence recalibrates patience into trust. The council states that impatience often disguises doubt. Lemurians trusted processes deeply because silence kept them connected to inner timing. As you quiet external input, your internal clock becomes reliable. You stop forcing outcomes and start allowing inevitability. This is when abundance arrives cleanly, without struggle. If waiting no longer feels threatening but purposeful, your trust has matured. Backhand index pointing right to affirm trust. Type, I allow divine timing, below. As this phase closes, recognize the transformation underway. Silence has moved from tool to terrain. You live inside it now. The Arcturian Council confirms that your reality is reorganizing around this steadiness. You are no longer reacting to life. Life is adjusting to you. Prosperity is not approaching loudly, it is aligning quietly. Stay here. Let the stillness finish its work. Backhand index pointing right to complete this integration. Type, I remain in stillness, to claim the message. The Arcturian Council now introduces a truth that only becomes visible at advanced stages of the Lemurian code. Silence restructures your self-worth at the root level. When you no longer rely on being heard, praised, or acknowledged, your value detaches from external feedback. Lemurians cultivated worth as an internal constant, not a fluctuating response to circumstance. Silence removes the habit of checking for validation. You stop scanning faces, reactions, numbers, or responses to confirm your existence. This internal anchoring is critical for prosperity, because abundance cannot stabilize in a system that constantly questions its own worth. If you feel less affected by opinions lately, both praise and criticism, this is not numbness. It is sovereignty forming. Backhand index pointing right to anchor self-worth. Type, my value is internal, to claim the message. At this stage, silence also begins to purify desire for recognition. The Council explains that wanting recognition creates dependency, and dependency distorts abundance. Lemurians allowed their contributions to circulate without attachment to credit. Silence dissolved the need to be seen as the source. This allowed wealth, influence, and opportunity to move freely through them rather than getting stuck in ego loops. If you've noticed that being unseen no longer bothers you the way it once did, this is a powerful upgrade. Prosperity trusts those who do not cling to visibility. Backhand index pointing right to release recognition hunger. Type, I do not need applause, below. Silence also reveals the difference between solitude and loneliness. The Arcturian Council emphasizes that many starseeds fear quiet because it was once associated with abandonment. Lemurian silence, however, was relational, it was communion with life itself. As your silence deepens, you may feel profoundly accompanied even when physically alone. This fullness eliminates the urge to fill space with consumption, distraction, or unnecessary spending. Prosperity increases when emptiness is no longer feared. If solitude now feels nourishing instead of painful, your abundance field has stabilized. Backhand index pointing right to honor sacred solitude. Type, I am complete within, to claim it. Another refinement occurs here. Silence strengthens your capacity to receive without guilt. The council states that many people unconsciously reject abundance because they feel they must explain or justify it. Lemurians received freely because silence dissolved comparison and apology. When you stop talking, you stop defending your good fortune. You simply allow. This is essential, because abundance expands when received cleanly. If compliments, opportunities, or resources are landing more easily without internal resistance, your system is learning to hold more without collapse. Backhand index pointing right to open to clean receiving. Type, I receive without guilt, below. As this segment completes, understand that silence has now touched every layer of your being, mental, emotional, energetic, and relational. The Arcturian Council confirms that you are no longer practicing restraint, you are living from inner fullness. Words become deliberate. Actions become precise. Prosperity no longer needs persuasion. It recognizes you as stable ground. Stay with this frequency. The final integrations are approaching quietly, exactly as they should. Backhand index pointing right to seal this depth. Type, I am rooted in quiet power, to claim the message. The Arcturian Council now delivers one of the final and most confronting revelations of the Lemurian Code: silence dissolves identity attachment. When you stop narrating who you are, you stop being trapped by who you were. Lemurians understood that identity, once spoken too often, becomes a cage. Silence allowed them to remain fluid, adaptive, and ungraspable. This fluidity is essential for prosperity, because abundance moves through those who can evolve without resistance. If you have felt less defined by titles, roles, or labels lately, and more guided by moment-to-moment truth, this is not confusion. This is liberation. Your wealth is no longer tied to a version of you that must be maintained. It is aligning with who you are becoming. Backhand index pointing right to release old identity bindings. Type, I am not confined, to claim the message. Here is the paradox few ever reach: silence makes you unmistakable. The Council explains that when you remove excess explanation, justification, and storytelling, your essence becomes clear. Lemurians were recognized not by reputation, but by resonance. People knew who they were without being told. This is why, at this stage, you may notice that doors open with fewer words, negotiations resolve faster, and respect arrives without effort. Your frequency is now doing the introduction. Prosperity responds to clarity faster than charisma. If you are speaking less yet being heard more, this is the silent signal fully online. Backhand index pointing right to embody unmistakable presence. Type, my energy speaks, below. Silence also completes the healing of scarcity consciousness. The Arcturian Council reveals that scarcity thrives on noise, worry, calculation, mental rehearsal, and constant anticipation of loss. Lemurians exited scarcity by exiting mental commentary. Silence returned them to the present moment, where lack cannot exist. As you quiet your inner dialogue, you may notice that fear-based planning dissolves. You still act wisely, but without panic. This calm intelligence is what allows abundance to stabilize long-term. Wealth does not grow where fear narrates the future. Backhand index pointing right to dissolve scarcity at the root. Type, I live in sufficiency, to claim it. Now comes the final integration. Silence aligns you with legacy rather than outcome. The council explains that outcomes are temporary, but legacy is structural. Lemurians built prosperity that outlived them because it was never rushed or performative. Silence oriented their actions toward continuity, not applause. At this stage, you may feel less interested in quick wins and more drawn to what endures. This is not a loss of ambition, it is a refinement of purpose. Abundance follows those who think beyond immediacy. Backhand index pointing right to align with legacy consciousness, type, I build what lasts, below. This transmission completes with a simple truth the Arcturian Council leaves you with: silence was never emptiness, it was preparation. You were not being delayed. You were being fortified. The Lemurian code of silent prosperity is now active within you. You will not need to announce it. Your life will demonstrate it. Let your calm become your currency. Let your stillness become your signature. Prosperity is no longer something you seek, it is something that recognizes you. Backhand index pointing right to seal the full activation, type, I am the silent frequency, to claim the message. This transmission, presented as a message from the Arcturian Council, reveals a radical and often uncomfortable truth: abundance does not respond to effort, noise, or constant expression, it responds to resonance, coherence, and silence. At its core, the Lemurian code of silent prosperity teaches that true wealth grows fastest when it is unannounced, unperformed, and internally stabilized before being externally expressed. The message begins by dismantling modern manifestation culture, which often encourages affirmations, declarations, and constant visualization. According to the Council, excessive speaking fractures energy. Every explanation, justification, or premature sharing leaks power. Silence, by contrast, compresses energy. It creates density, certainty, and inevitability. Lemurians understood that prosperity was not something to be chased or discussed openly, it was something cultivated inwardly until it became undeniable. Silence is framed not as passivity or withdrawal, but as gestation. Just as seeds grow in darkness before breaking the soil, abundance requires a private phase. Speaking too soon exposes intentions to doubt, misalignment, and external interference. Many people unknowingly sabotage their own timelines by oversharing plans or seeking validation. The Lemurian code teaches energetic containment, holding vision quietly until action becomes inevitable and aligned. A central theme throughout the transmission is coherence. Abundance responds fastest when inner intention, emotional state, nervous system, and external behavior are aligned. Silence removes contradiction. When people speak fear, urgency, or comparison while desiring prosperity, they fracture their signal. Silence heals this fracture by reducing mixed messaging and allowing intention to stabilize. As coherence increases, outcomes become less random and more inevitable. The Council also explains that silence preserves identity fluidity. Language stabilizes reality. Constantly describing who you are reinforces the current version of self. During transitions, silence allows old identities to dissolve without resistance. This is why growth phases often feel quiet, confusing, or unproductive. They are not stagnation, they are metamorphosis. Speaking too much during these phases often pulls people back into familiar versions of themselves. Another critical insight is that silence protects energetic sovereignty. Not everyone deserves access to your vision. Words are portals, and once spoken, energy travels. Oversharing invites opinions, projections, and contamination that can destabilize momentum. Lemurians practiced silence as energetic hygiene, filtering who had access to their field. As silence deepens, misaligned relationships naturally fade, making space for connections that meet you in quiet understanding rather than constant exchange. The transmission repeatedly emphasizes that prosperity is not loud. It does not announce itself before arriving. The most powerful frequencies are subtle. Silence regulates the nervous system, dissolves urgency, and removes desperation, all of which repel abundance. Calm certainty attracts. When people stop chasing outcomes and start embodying completeness internally, external resources move to mirror that state. Silence also dismantles comparison. Comparison feeds on exposure. By reducing social noise and external observation, individuals return to a self-referenced reality. Progress is measured by alignment rather than appearance. This protects momentum and eliminates scarcity thinking introduced through constant comparison. As silence becomes embodied rather than practiced, intuition sharpens. The inner voice moves from whisper to command. Decisions become cleaner and better timed. Prosperity depends more on right timing than hard work, and silence enhances sensitivity to subtle cues. Acting from calm decisiveness allows wealth to flow without struggle. The Council introduces the idea that silence restores dignity. Over-explaining, justifying, or seeking reassurance erodes self-respect and energetic authority. Lemurians considered dignity a form of wealth. Silence preserves it. As dignity returns, respect increases naturally, negotiations shift, and opportunities respond differently. Authority emerges without dominance. Another major theme is emotional regulation. Silence brings emotional neutrality, not apathy, but stability. Extreme emotional highs and lows destabilize manifestation fields. Lemurians cultivated calm satisfaction rather than constant excitement. Stability attracts long-term prosperity, volatility attracts cycles. Silence helps process buried fear, dissolve scarcity patterns, and purify unresolved emotion that would otherwise block abundance. The transmission also reframes leadership. True authority does not persuade, it stabilizes. Silent presence regulates others. People feel calmer, clearer, and more grounded around those who embody stillness. This stabilizing frequency reorganizes environments, making chaos unsustainable. Prosperity flows toward those who provide energetic safety. At advanced stages, silence restructures self-worth. Validation seeking dissolves. Worth becomes internal and constant rather than dependent on recognition, praise, or visibility. The hunger for applause fades, allowing wealth and influence to move freely without ego attachment. Being unseen no longer threatens identity, it strengthens sovereignty. Silence also heals loneliness by transforming it into sacred solitude. When quiet becomes nourishing rather than empty, people stop filling space with consumption, distraction, or unnecessary spending. Prosperity increases when emptiness is no longer feared. Receiving becomes cleaner, without guilt, apology, or justification. In its final stages, the Lemurian code dissolves identity attachment entirely. Titles, roles, and labels loosen. Individuals become fluid, adaptive, and ungraspable. This fluidity allows abundance to move freely, no longer tied to maintaining a fixed image. Paradoxically, silence makes people unmistakable. Essence becomes clear without explanation. Doors open with fewer words. Respect arrives without effort. Energy speaks. The Council explains that scarcity consciousness thrives on mental noise, worry, calculation, and fear-based narration of the future. Silence collapses attention into the present moment, where lack cannot exist. Calm intelligence replaces panic planning, allowing wealth to stabilize long-term. The final integration shifts focus from outcomes to legacy. Lemurians built prosperity that endured because it was not rushed or performative. Silence-oriented actions toward continuity rather than quick wins. At this stage, ambition refines into purpose. Individuals become builders of structures, systems, and energies that outlast immediate results. The transmission concludes with a powerful reminder: silence was never emptiness, it was preparation. Delays were not punishment, they were fortification. The Lemurian code of silent prosperity activates when individuals stop announcing their evolution and allow their lives to demonstrate it. Calm becomes currency. Stillness becomes signature. Abundance no longer needs to be summoned, it recognizes those who are stable enough to hold it. In essence, the message teaches that what you stop saying may be more powerful than anything you declare, and that prosperity grows strongest in the quiet where alignment becomes inevitable.